Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Larry Krueger. The title of the show today is Helping Kyle Shanahan Fix the 49ers Offense. We come in a spirit of generosity, trying to help Kyle Shanahan because we like him so much and want him to succeed. But before we do that, we need to talk about trades. Trade deadline's coming up, and the Niners have been rumored to be interested in certain players, starting with Christian McCaffrey. Apparently, they've shown interest. I don't know what that means. Do you think they're in on Christian McCaffrey?
Well, I've read it in a couple different places. I don't know either, but I would say this. He's a difference-making player. It's just all about health. And I think what we've learned about Christian McCaffrey, he's a great player, but he's not a bell cow back. So if you're going to make him your bell cow back, then you don't want him because he's going to get hurt. He runs upright. He takes a lot of hits. But if you're not going to make him your bell cow back and you have other guys who can kind of carry the mail between the tackles and you can just mix him in as a, wide receiver running back, I don't think any team thus far has really taken full, really gotten full value for McCaffrey. He's a huge, huge talent, a home run hitter, big play guy. And I think in this offense, he would be spectacular. So yes, I would be interested. I hope they're interested. Now it's just a matter of what's the price tag.
Yeah, so that's the question. What do you think it would cost? A second
At least
round
a
pick?
second, maybe two twos, maybe a second and a third or a second and a fourth. I think,
and that means you would keep him beyond this year.
You don't have to, but you could.
But you're not giving up 2 twos for 12 games with Christian McCaffrey. I don't think you would.
I would think so. I would think not. And the good news is he is under contract. So the real and the big payment on the contract on his past contract, goes with the Panthers. So it's really more about, are you willing to, offer the compensation as far as players or picks going back? I would do it because I think he's a difference maker, but he also gets hurt. And if you're going to run him, if you're going to run him on short yardage, up the A gap, if you don't get him in space and let him operate, I think you're not utilizing him right.
Yeah, look, he is a difference maker. He is a good player. He would make the Niners better. Does he fix their problems? I mean, the thing about the Niners offense is they're not lacking talent, They
got a lot of talent.
They got good running backs. They got an undrafted rookie that we think is probably the best running back he's hasn't gotten an opportunity yet. They have 2 excellent wide receivers, a tight end who's still good. So yeah, McCaffrey would make him better, but I think the reason they're underperforming right now is the guy calling the plays. And I don't know if McCaffrey fixes it. Also, the Niners have a terrible track record of keeping players healthy. So maybe McCaffrey should go to a team that's better at that.
Well, okay, so here's their dilemma.
Yeah.
They have to get more dynamic offensively. I don't know that they've got the quarterback to connect down the field to Danny Gray or Ray McCloud, or I don't know that they have the receivers. I mean, we'll see. McCloud,
the offensive line to hold up, all those things.
The offensive line to hold up, right? So the one thing about McCaffrey is he could give you a dynamic player, kind of like a Debo, that could operate underneath. So now you could take advantage of what Jimmy does well, which is throws it short and he lets it rip, and then let McCaffrey or Debo do all the work. I mean, that's just that. To me, I think in some ways he's an ideal fit because he doesn't catch the ball down the field. He catches the ball within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, makes somebody miss, and then gets down the field.
And I'm not dismissing this. I'm open-minded because it seems to me if the Niners don't get McCaffrey, then the Rams very likely might. And they're a lot more dangerous with Christian McCaffrey. Like, heaven forbid they get Christian McCaffrey in time to play the Niners in a couple of weeks. And then you got the Cardinals, who aren't great, but they're going to be getting DeAndre Hopkins back soon. The NFC West looks bad, but it's going to be getting better. So maybe the Niners should do something like this, considering so many injuries. I mean, look, I'm open-minded. It's just that they'd have to keep him beyond this year to make this worthwhile, and they'd have to keep him healthy, and they'd have to either restructure his contract or pay him a lot of money the next few years.
Yeah, and also, if Carolina wants a lot of picks, they do have other players that they could put in the deal that would sweeten it on a lot of fronts. So you could add, you could grow the deal if you felt like the ask was too high, but they had to have those picks. I'd give the picks if they would throw in a Terrace Marshall, or if you could somehow get one of their other defensive players in this thing, or the Niners have that's the other dilemma here, Grant, is I don't really know exactly what they need to do. If they're in this go for it mode this year, which I think they are, what's their biggest need? Is it a tackle, defensive, offensive, corner, wide receiver, running back? I don't, they've got so many injuries at this point. It's hard to exactly pinpoint where they could use, fortifying.
Well, let's talk about it. To me, again, I think the issue isn't talent on offense. Yeah, they could use more offensive linemen. It's tough to find offensive linemen. If they could get another offensive lineman, that would be great. Would they need an offensive tackle at this point? Or center?
Maybe a tackle, the way McGlinchey looks, kind of limping around and Trent's out.
Maybe. I would also say a corner because Mosley isn't coming back. Of all these guys that are injured, he's the one that's not coming back. And I guess Diamador Lenore is okay. Let's see. Let's see a couple more games of Diamador Lenore because the Falcons didn't even throw. They didn't even have to throw. Let's see how Diamador Lenore does this week against the Chiefs. Because if the Niners don't have a quality number 2 cornerback, you don't ever have to even target Charvarius Ward, and he won't have an impact on games. So when they had that quality number 2, and Mosley was better than quality, they looked like they could be an all-time great defense.
Especially if Verrett's so iffy that they're not sure about him. William Jackson III is from Washington. The Commanders are shopping him. He's a big-bodied corner, a lot of confidence. You're right. I kind of agree. Like this is a team that got to the conference title game last year with Tom Compton and Daniel Brunskill on the right side. Right. Not as an insult to those guys, but Compton is a street free agent, and so I think you might be able to make do and find a tackle where you're not going to find just a corner that's good. I mean, I think they learned that lesson last year. So, yeah, maybe corner. Maybe corner.
They don't seem to have any confidence in Ambry Thomas anymore. If Jason Verrett comes back, great, but good luck. It just seems like Jason Verrett would have a better chance next year after a full offseason than just to jump back into the middle of the year, not in football shape. And then if it's not Lenore, then it's Womack. Is that it? Or Dante Johnson? I mean, those aren't really options.
Well, Womack got burned on 2 touchdowns in this last game. One, he took a bad angle and lost contain on Mariota. And the other, he peeked into the backfield on a play where there's no space at all. And as soon as he peeked, he was done. Yeah. So it's just, but yet he's a hugely talented kid, and I like him as a prospect, but it just kind of shows you that young corners get toasted in the NFL.
And why they're not playing him. Why he got benched after the Niners essentially shut out Seattle. All right, I got a question for you. What is going on with Brian Burns' IG account? I see he posts things about the Rams and the Niners, and it's like, dude, you're on the Carolina Panthers. Explain this.
I mean, is he toying with people, or is maybe his agent is telling him, hey, the Rams are showing interest. Hey, the 49ers are showing interest. I don't know. The one thing I'll say
I have a theory.
Go ahead.
Doesn't it kind of feel like he's trying to get the fans of those teams to sort of put pressure on their team to make a play for him? Hey, Niner fans, I kind of might want to play for you. Hey, John Lynch, what's up with Brian Burns? Yeah. It's like trying to create like a groundswell.
A buzz.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, his play is, he's awesome. I just don't know that they need him. I mean, unless the Achilles pain that Ebukam's having is legit. Bosa's coming back. I think Drake is playing terrific. And then, Amenahu's never looked better. I don't think I've ever seen Amenahu look faster. So and Ebukam looks terrific when he's healthy. So to me, it's
the
about
defense
Ebukam's
is so decimated. I mean, of course they could use Brian Burns. He's a great player. I would rather get Brian Burns than Christian McCaffrey. I'd rather get an edge rusher than a running back. I'm just saying. Like, maybe the Niners would benefit more. It's an interesting question. Who'd you rather have if you could only have – I don't think the Niners have enough draft capital to get.
On this team, I would take McCaffrey because on this team, they can't score points. They're struggling to score points.
That's my question is it because of talent or because of Kyle? Like, if you gave him McCaffrey, would he blow that too? I'm down on Kyle this week.
I know. I'm
down on Kyle this week.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
I am too. I mean, how could you not be down on Kyle right now? I mean, to me, I got a particular 2-play sequence that just is gnawing at me that I just can't get out of my mind on that. Well, there's two plays. It was the 2nd and 10 running play from the 46-yard line on their 9th drive of the game, which was the one they took over in the 1. The drive took over. They had 10 minutes and 40 seconds. At this point, there was like roughly 5 minutes left in the game, and it's a 2nd and 10 play, and he's running Tevin Coleman, and he was tackled for a loss. But why are you running at all there?
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't hurry up was bothering me. And then the lack of urgency. But then when they ran the ball there, I was like, that's inexcusable. Then later in the drive where they had a 3rd and 1, and instead of going quarterback sneak, I thought, okay, it's either quarterback sneak or it's a pass.
That call to Tevin Coleman was so bad.
But I mean, I thought it either was going to be a pass because they wanted to stop the clock, or the quarterback sneak was the obvious one.
I asked Kyle about that after the game. I asked Kyle about that one play after the game. I was like, why didn't you do a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 1? And he's like, well, the quarterback had the option to do it. He always blames Jimmy. He could have. He had the option. All right, man. Well, why don't you just tell him to do it instead of giving him the option? Yeah, but what I want to say about Brian Burns real quick. Yeah. Coming back to Brian Burns, I'm open-minded because, again, we don't really know what's going on with Bosa. I think we need to keep our eye on Bosa. He's got a groin injury, and Kyle keeps saying, I hope he's coming back. But the Bosas are very careful with injuries. Remember, John, the dad, his career was ruined because of the Dolphins mismanaged his knee injury. I'm not sure that Bosa is going to be rushing back. I don't know what the state of his groin is, but I wouldn't be surprised if this lingers, and he stays out for a while. I wouldn't be surprised. They got to be careful with him, and he's very careful with himself. So Brian Burns, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't be opposed. He's freaking good.
Brian Burns is a total difference maker. Bosa's the key to their whole defense. I think we saw that. I mean, his ability to dial up pressure on those 3rd down plays makes all the DBs look better. So
you could argue that wasn't Burns in the same class as Bosa?
I think so. I think obviously Bosa went 2. I think Burns went 11 or something like that.
In retrospect, they could have went 1 and 2.
Yeah. Burns is long and angular. He's got moves. He can beat you with quickness. He can beat you with speed and counter. Yep. He's awesome. I love Derek Brown too. I mean, get him to take Kinlaw in return and try to steal Derek Brown. I mean, I'd throw in picks and make it a big deal if I could, because I love I think Terrace Marshall. Who's the 2 best receivers in football right now? It's Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
and they're both LSU kids. Now, Terrace Marshall was awesome at LSU too, but he's played under Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, bad quarterbacks. I think Terrace Marshall, if you could get him in the deal, could be a steal for whatever team he goes to next. Because I just think he just hasn't played with any good quarterbacks yet.
All right, let's take a couple questions, and then we'll get to the rest of our show. Isaiah Adams says, aside from Shanahan's inability to adapt, there's zero leadership in this offense. That's why games are over as soon as we fall behind a couple scores. Well, that's an interesting point.
I don't know if I would point to leadership as the reason they fall apart when they disconnect on the scoreboard, but there's no question about it. I mean, the numbers show it. They don't come from behind from any big margin at all.
Darius R. Yeah, that's a fact now. He can't run from that. Darius R. says, going to my first game against LA, how can I see you? Man, I'm working, dude. It's tough to see people on game. I get there 3 hours before and I'm writing a live blog. I go to press conferences. I'm working till like 3 hours after the game. It's a work day. We'll do a meet and greet sometime. It's hard.
Eric is probably the best way to see you right here.
Yeah, pretty much. Eric says every year that Kyle has a decent offense, they've had a revolutionary play in their back pocket, jet sweeps and end around and wide back. If Kyle feels having 2 wide backs and Debo and CMC is good, do it. You know what's going to save him this year? Jordan Mason. Once they finally get him in the game.
Who's Jordan Mason?
Excuse me. JP? No, I don't even know.
Who's that guy? I don't know. I
never heard of him. Antonio says, honestly, I want Kyle Shanahan fired. I'm so tired of the same football for 4 years. I've had enough evidence. Ooh, it feels like Kyle's on the Niner fans' hot seat right now.
There's a lot of people that have turned on Kyle in the last week or two.
Yeah, no one saw this loss coming. All right, let's help Kyle out because his stock is down, and we want to help him. He takes our suggestions 98% of the time. So we have an inroads.
We picked his team to go to the Super Bowl.
We did, and we're sticking by that because you know what? There's a lot of games left, and this division is not good. So, Kyle, you can absolutely turn the season around and win the Super Bowl, but you're going to need to change some things. So, Larry and I are going to go back and forth and just offer helpful suggestions. You can go first. What would you do?
Well, what I would do, it's interesting. It's like, I'm thinking about my complaints in this game and this and that. I think they went away from the run. It's really weird. I mean, you can be hypercritical on this stuff, but then I thought they went away from the run early in the game once they tied it. Now, granted, immediately Atlanta went back up 7, but I thought they went away from the run a little bit too much early, and then they stayed with the run too long before they decided to go hurry up, and they never really showed me any real consistent hurry up. And I felt like if there was one area in this game where I would give Kyle an F and give Arthur Smith an A, it was the understanding and use of tempo in the game. Arthur Smith would get into short 2nd and 1s, 3rd and 1s, race everybody to the line of scrimmage, and then give you an obvious run look. And then one time it's a run to the running back, and one time it's a quarterback keeper, and Mariota's very decisive and he's making one read and going.
And then Niners on their heels.
And the Niners were on their heels, and they used tempo expertly. The 49ers, I thought, didn't. They didn't go hurry up.
They went slow down 14 in the fourth quarter. That was amateur.
Yeah, it didn't matter if they scored or didn't score on the touchdown or on the play on the drive where they lost it on downs, because even if they had scored, the game was over. When the Niners got the ball back on their last drive after they stopped Atlanta on Atlanta's final drive, then there's only 1 minute and 3 seconds left in the game.
No timeouts.
With no timeouts, yeah. So I mean, that 9th drive was a killer, and the Brendel penalties, absolutely crushing penalties. And then the lack of urgency. They should have gone hurry up much faster. There's no way in hell they should have been running Tevin Coleman on 2nd and 10 from the 46 with 5 minutes to play, down 14 points. I mean, there was one, I went through the play-by-play. There was one sequence, I think, in that drive, Grant, where they went 38 seconds between plays. Yeah. That's way too much. What are you doing? Yeah. That's way too much inside of 10 minutes, down 14 points. They have to be able to speed it up. So my first thing would be like, get your arms around what tempo you want to play that's advantageous for you at what parts of the game, and make sure you are locked into the proper tempo. Because if you're not playing at the right tempo, that gets you beat as well.
So like, to me, what you're saying is that's situational football, okay? Kyle has a very deliberate tempo in the first quarter. We're going to make 3 substitutions. We're going to talk about it in the huddle. We're going to get to the line, and then Kittle's going to go in motion, and then maybe use check, and then there's going to be another. It's like, okay, all this stuff, but with down 14 with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the tempo has to be totally different. You can't play like that anymore. Have some situational awareness. Practice that. I feel like the Niners Kyle Shanahan is so much more concerned with his scheme than with situational football, and that's why he's not scoring in the fourth quarter. Like you can't just run your scheme all the time. There's different tempos for different situations, and I don't think they're actually in tune with that. So yeah, practice situational football.
They're not scoring in the third quarter either. Quarterback, the quarter that most reflects coaching adjustments generally is, okay, you come out with your game plan, they come out with their adjustments, you go into the locker room, you make some adjustments. The third quarter is go time. They're 28th in the NFL in third quarter points right now.
Yeah, he's got to save something for the third quarter. Also, he needs to go down the field. This whole slant screens and curls offense isn't good enough, because to win the Super Bowl, you're eventually going to have to beat the Bills or the Chiefs, and these teams have shown that they can go down the field in 9 seconds and score a touchdown if they need to. They've done it before. The Niners, you got the ball back with 1:07 left and no timeouts. Over. You don't have the quick strike ability, but on that final drive that took 8 million years, Jimmy Garoppolo did throw a very nice deep pass to Brandon Ayuk that didn't count. He needs to be doing more of this. Brandon Ayuk is way too gifted to just run slants and screens and curls all day. Same with Debo. You have 2 of the best wide receivers in the league, and Jimmy Garoppolo made some nice throws down the field in this game. To his credit, you got to go down the field. This whole micromanaging slant screens and curls thing is not good enough. Not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn on this one, because like for this week, for example, against Kansas City, do you fling it around? Do you fling it all over the place? In a way, Grant, I totally agree with you. Why? Because you have Ayuk. You drafted Danny Gray. You signed Ray McCloud. You did this because you knew you needed a downfield offense, whether it was Trey, Jimmy, whether I was quarterbacking, whether you were quarterbacking. They had to have some downfield threat. They had zero downfield threat last year, zero. And so they needed that. They knew they needed that. Now they've made adjustments, added the players, and they still don't have a downfield threat. And they got to connect on those passes, and if they don't connect, they got to try it again. My biggest complaint is that Ray dropped it. My biggest complaint is that they only went to him one time.
Right. And that Danny Gray was inactive.
And Danny Gray was inactive. Was he? I know he was ill during the week, but I mean, first of all, Ray McCloud fumbled a ton last year in Pittsburgh, and his ball skills are iffy at best. You see it a little bit on special teams. He is a fast guy, and you had to use your speed on that fast surface. But man, Danny Gray was drafted for a reason. He's not just a fast guy. He's a fast guy, a tough guy with good ball skills. And you know what? I know Ray's more advanced, more trustworthy on special teams, but Danny Gray was a 3rd-round pick for a reason. He is a game breaker.
Yep.
Let him break the game open.
And to your question, I don't think the Niners. I don't think the Niners have the defense to just dink and dunk on offense anymore. You can dink and dunk and play ball control and run the ball when you have the best defense in the league, which they had, but they don't have that anymore because 8 starters are hurt. So no, I don't think it's enough. If they just try to dink and dunk their way to a victory over the Chiefs, it's not going to happen. Now, maybe you're not going to win either way.
And the other plan is you got the Chiefs. Maybe you ought to have the Arthur Smith game plan, which is, run the ball. Power it, power the run, JP Mason time, mix in, just stay patient with the run game. Be well, do what Arthur Smith did. Caleb Huntley is just a guy.
Algier, sure. Run the ball 40 times, but take shots. Take shots.
Take shots.
Take shots.
You got to absolutely take shots.
Yeah.
But I think they also
keep them honest. That's all I'm saying. Keep them honest. Use Brandon Ayuk. Use Debo. Come on. That's all I'm saying.
Right now, everybody's bunched up. They need to take shots, create space, but then they need to pound the run and be patient.
Because that's their identity. And honestly, they've shown they can't win any other way. Let's be honest. They cannot win any other way. When they throw more than they run, they lose. When they don't have a 4-point lead in the fourth quarter, they lose. So win how you win, but at the same time, you got to take shots. I hated that passing offense this last week.
And also, since you can't take shots when everybody knows you're going to pass because you don't have the tackles right now, and you may not even have the quarterback. Yeah. That means you got to take shots down the field earlier in the games.
Yep.
Go up top early in the game.
Yep.
Make them defend the vertical side of the field for the entire game. Make that a factor. Sometimes I think they come out, we're going to establish the run, we're going to go play action pass, we're going to draw everybody up on the line of scrimmage, then we're going to take shots. Well, that could take 4 drives. You need to take some shots before you get disconnected, especially as you start playing these better offensive teams.
Yep.
You're going to get disconnected on the scoreboard faster. Yep. So you need to be more aggressive in the first quarter in the downfield passing attack, I think, to hang
also
with those teams.
When you take
games could get out of hand.
Also, when you take these shots, don't waste them by taking them to Charlie Warner or Ray McCloud. Those are not deep threats.
Tight end. Yeah, you're
blocking. If you're throwing it to a tight end, it's Kittle or Dwelly. Dwelly has never dropped a pass. Kittle is a very good tight end. If you're throwing to a wide receiver, it's Danny Gray, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Stop calling deep throws for Tevin Coleman and Jawan Jennings. Stop. Just because you think no one's expecting it, that doesn't make it smart. You have really good receivers on your team. Throw to those guys because you only get 3 or 4 shots in this game, and you wasted them in this game calling him for Charlie Warner. He should have caught it. What'd you really expect? It's Charlie Warner.
I mean, you're trying to surprise everybody. The person who looks most surprised was Charlie Warner.
Yes.
Charlie Warner, what? The ball's here? Here's the thing. You got an awesome 4-5 all-pro tight end. Yep. Let him catch the ball down the field and find some blocker that you trust and let that guy stay in and block.
Yeah. There's so many better options. Charlie Warner should be the 9th option in the passing game. He should get 2 targets a year, and they should be in the flat. What? I don't know. There's so much that Kyle Shanahan can do better. He usually improves as the season goes on. And to his in his defense, his whole mind was in the Trey Lance mode all offseason. He wanted to get rid of Jimmy. He was trying to do this 11-on-11 thing, and then Trey got hurt, and now he's reinstalling old offenses. It could get better, and he has a bye week in a couple of weeks to get his shit together. But right now, it looks so vanilla. super vanilla. And also that little, I feel like he had a big advantage over the league with the motion stuff. He really figured out that if he does motion every play, defenses will react, and there will be 3 or 4 or 5 times a game where they'll just get confused and he'll have big plays. Well, I don't think defenses are reacting like that anymore. I don't think they're changing as much anymore. I think they're just sort of letting the Niners move around, and they're not adjusting their calls, and the Niners don't have this advantage. It's not nearly as big of an advantage anymore. So he has to find another advantage.
Well, and I think it's the NFL more and more is becoming a speed game. I mean, you see it. There's not a lot of first of all, you don't play preseason, very many preseason games. Teams don't play their guys very much early. It's just the offensive cohesion league wide, not just the Niners, league wide, is just really not there. So it's not about long extended drives for the most part. It's about quick strike ability. And they understood that. That's why they got Ray. That's why they got Danny Gray. All I'm saying is use those guys. I know you don't have Trey to get him the ball, but you still got to get the ball to Danny Gray somehow. He's a mismatch. He's a major dynamic weapon. You need more dynamic weapons.
And it's a poor excuse to say Jimmy Garoppolo can't get the ball down the field. He made some nice throws down the field in this game. Give him a chance. Did. He did, and he has really good receivers who will make him look good.
And now we know his mindset, Grant. He wants to take those shots down the field. He wants to go deep.
You're not going to win a Super Bowl with that offense they had last week. That's not going anywhere. They got to do something different. They got to try this. It's unacceptable to be this bad on offense with these wide receivers. They're really good. This team right now is so hard to watch, says Christian. That's why we're trying to help. Dark Halo says if we go CB before CMC, D goes back to full power. That cornerback position really was – having Ward and Mosley was such a game changer for that defense. It took them from good to great for 5 games.
Also, I mean, their D can't play up quite as fast up front without Kinlaw and Armstead and Bosa. I mean, they've lost 3/4 of their defensive front. I mean, they have 2 D lines, but now that depth is being tested.
All right, Tony's getting spicy. Kyle Shanahan for Brian Burns, J.C. Horn in the 2023 second-round pick. Who says no? Hey, they need a coach.
How about if you took out Kyle Shanahan and put Trey Lance's name in there? Would you do it? Knowing everything you know now, I mean,
I don't think they can give up on
number
Trey
one
Lance
corner,
yet. He's their
number one
pick
pass
next
rusher.
Year. I don't think they can actually afford.
You're essentially getting 2 1s and a 2.
Then what do you do at quarterback? You don't even have a first round pick next year. You can't give up on Trey Lance.
I know.
I don't think you can. It
just seems
it's interesting.
Okay, the only thing I'll say about Trey Lance, and this is just my observation, it seems like Trey Lance needs a 10 to 15 game kind of runway to really play, make mistakes, maybe fail. And it just doesn't seem like I can't envision the fan base or the team ever giving him a 15 game runway. But that's just my maybe you can develop
their problem.
Without it.
That's their problem. I mean, it worked out for Philly. They waited a little bit for Jalen Hurts. It worked out for Buffalo. They waited a little bit for Josh Allen. You got to be patient. I mean, Joe Montana wasn't Joe Montana right away.
True.
And the way I look at it too is like with Trey Lance, if Kyle isn't the guy for him, I'm real interested in Ken Dorsey. He's killing it this year. Like Brian Daboll, first of all, he coached under Brian Daboll, who's an excellent coach, and he's taken this offense to another level than what Brian Daboll had it. And he developed Josh Allen. Everyone says Trey Lance could be the next Josh Allen. Well, if you want him to be the next Josh Allen, maybe bring in the guy who developed Josh Allen and Cam Newton. I'm just saying he's very intriguing, Ken Dorsey.
He is. I'll tell you, I like what I saw as far as development from Arthur Smith on Marcus Mariota. I thought Mariota played almost a flawless game.
He's as efficient as could be. Matthew Sanders says, can't wait for Kyle to figure it all out, tear off a win streak, and turn things around just in time for Jimmy to get us bounced in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this 8 times. It's going to be a lot of fun. They're going to go on a win streak in November because of all of our suggestions, though. The Gold Rush 561 says, didn't Kyle's offense look more creative in the Bears game than any other game so far? Yeah, man, his script in the Bears game was cool. They were actually jet sweeps. Remember? First play of the season was a jet sweep to Brandon Ayuk. What the hell happened to that? Gained 7 yards.
They're having a hard time getting Debo sprung on any of these like end arounds or jet sweeps or orbit motions, or it seems like they're having a hard time getting him at a full run. I mean,
Debo's not having a great year. He's kind of
not
back.
As a runner.
He's having a good year, but it's not. Last year was an outlier. He's playing like he played the first 2 years of his career, which was good. But I don't know. Maybe it's got to be Kyle, man. Debo is way too good to have these middling numbers right now, which his numbers are kind of middling. Same with Ayuk. I don't know.
Ayuk, it was great to see Ayuk bust out. He needed to bust out. I talked about that in the pregame show with O'Neal on Sunday. I'm like, man, this is it. I mean, he's got to bust out. It's his time. He had a great camp, and it just didn't. We hadn't seen it until this last game. I want to see that 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. I want to see him really take off because he can.
Will Victor says, I've always liked Kyle, but the offense has never been better than the defense, which is what Kyle's known for, and I'm not having McDaniel expose his offense. And not having McDaniel expose his offense. The defensive coach is why he still has a job. Yeah, man, he's starting to look like Brian Billick, right? A guy who's, he gets credit for having these defensive coaches, but at the same time, his offense is unacceptably bad, and he's not coaching the defense. So it's like, who would you rather have long-term, Marvin Lewis or Brian Billick? Who would you rather have long-term, D'Amico Ryans or Kyle Shanahan? It's becoming a question.
I like Kyle, but I need to see a lot more from right now. I mean, the one thing you can say, without a doubt, we can debate a lot of this, but what's not debatable is that the 49er offense is less than the sum of their parts.
No question. And that's the truth. Why?
There's no way around that. I mean, it's like
you can't blame Jimmy for that. You can't blame the quarterback for that. It has to go to the architect, who is Kyle, the common denominator. Ethan says, my 8-year-old brother has a better football sense in Madden than Kyle has had in the last 6 years of coaching. People who play Madden tend to understand how to work the clock. That's all I'm saying. That's one thing that simulation teaches you how to do is situational football and clock awareness. I swear, coaches should play Madden just for that alone. Situational football.
Sports keeps getting younger and younger. Giants just hired a 30-year-old GM. Maybe could you imagine an 8-year-old head coach? Yeah.
What happened to Scott Harris? Did they get rid of Scott?
He left. He went to Detroit.
I went to college with Scott Harris. We used to play.
Okay, yeah, he's now the GM of the Tigers.
Oh, cool. He got an upgrade?
Yeah, he's the head of baseball ops. He's like Farhan in Detroit.
That dude I had no idea he was that dude. We would just play baseball video games together, and he was, to his credit, very good. Antonio said, no matter what suggestions you try to tell that guy, he ain't going to listen. He's so overrated. Keep putting Kyle under criticism. Someone has to. Yeah, our market is scared to say it about Kyle, and I don't know why. Is it because Mike won that Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, we saw Chip Kelly, who, by the way, might be the hottest coach in college football right now. How about
Always believed in him. Thank you, Chip. I apologize for everything I ever said. Good college coach.
How good is UCLA's offense?
Zach Charbonnet's one hell of a running back. Oh
my God,
he's so good.
So fast.
He's tough.
Yeah, he's tough.
Ethan says good coaches don't have these kind of issues in year 6. Oh man, it's catching up to Kyle, dude. It'd be great for you to beat the Chiefs. If he beats the Chiefs this week, everyone's off his back.
Yeah, it's a huge game, and a bunch of different things can happen, right? If they beat the Chiefs, wow, here we go, 49ers to the bowl, right?
Super Bowl contender.
If they get destroyed by the Chiefs, like thoroughly outclassed,
that's not
could
good.
Be,
maybe Jed might tweet.
Jed might be tweeting. Jed could tweet.
See, Turley, man, you've been at it all day, man. There are no more excuses for Kyle in year 6, injury or whatever it is. He's turning out to be a high-level loser. Oh, man, Kyle, these are your fans. These are what they think of you. Niner by Nature 88 says, if we get blown out, does that hurt the locker room? I mean, it doesn't help. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way around that.
Petition for changing Arthur Smith to Slim Smith. That's a good name. Yeah, I was saying that he needs a better name. Slim. Antonio Espindola says, the only thing I'm getting impatient is with Kyle Shanahan. Wow. What about Kareem Hunt? Will that open up the offense? Yeah. I mean,
we'll open up the switchboard, with all kinds of people calling up, complaining about his domestic violence.
I don't think Jed wants that.
They're not going to touch him just because of that. But I'll tell you, Kareem Hunt has got tremendous heart as a back. And if you needed a running back and you're looking for a back, he's a hell of a back.
He is very good. Oscar, nice to meet you as well in ATL. Oscar, Steve M says jet sweep to Gray just once, please. No, you're not. They're not allowed to run that play anymore. It's not allowed. Oscar says the Falcons didn't respect the deep game. Talk to a Falcons DB. Wow. Thank you, Oscar. Reporting. Well, I mean, why would you respect the deep game? It's pretty much shown that Kyle doesn't want to go there, and neither does Jimmy, or at least Kyle doesn't.
Well, and you could argue that they don't have the personnel to do it. I mean, they just got Gray. They've never gotten deep with him in a regular season game. They're using Ray as a special teamer.
Yeah, but Debo and Ayuk should be monsters in the intermediate area, 10 to 20 yard range.
Yeah,
monsters.
Yeah,
they should be able to catch it at 15 yards and then get you an extra 10.
Especially Ayuk.
Yeah, Isaiah says if Kyle hired a competent training staff, Dante Johnson would be working at Chili's. Man, give
rough.
Dante Johnson some credit.
Dante Johnson's respected guy in the room.
Smack Jones says, why would BA even want to come back to us? Well, he's under team control for the next 2 years, but I don't know if he likes that. All right, let's talk about something else. When the Niners signed Ray McCloud, I always trip up on his name. When the Niners signed Ray McCloud, they said he was going to be a weapon, not just a punt returner, but they were going to use him in all these different ways. And we talked all offseason, like, is he going to be in the backfield? Are they going to run jet sweeps with him? And we figured there was going to be all this creativity expressed through Ray. And so far, they almost never give him the ball in offense. And when they do, it's like, hey, catch this bomb, which I don't think that's how they used him in Pittsburgh. What do you think of the usage of Ray McCloud so far?
Well, they obviously trust him on returns. That's what he's there for, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would, because he had fumbled 6 times last year. 6 times. Yeah. That's a lot of fumbles. Yeah. If he fumbles 6 times this year, he's going to be like public enemy number 1. Mm-hmm. So I'm just holding my breath. Looking at that, every time I see him, I'm thinking of those 6 fumbles from last year, thinking, when is it going to burn them? When are they going to get burned in a game where Ray McCloud fumbles? So that's my biggest concern. I would like to see him utilized more, though, because I think their offense lacks dynamic weapons. I mean, either they don't have dynamic weapons or they don't know how to get their weapons to look dynamic, but they're not making the big chunk yardage plays, and he's definitely a guy that could deliver that. So I'd like to see him used more, but I would be fearful of running him up through the tackle box, because I think he'll fumble.
I think it's too early to say that he was a bad pickup. I just feel like they haven't shown any creativity with the way they use him. I was expecting, with him and Debo on the field together, I thought you could be like the best reverse team in the league. Those two running in different directions. So many things you could do, and you haven't seen any of it yet. Maybe they're saving it for after the bye week or something, and games that are more important. But so far, I feel like they've wasted him. And he's not the only player on off. And Kyle does this every year, where the first half of the year, he just leans on the people that know his scheme. And then by the second half of the year, when everyone knows his scheme, he finally gets around to using the best players in the way that they should be used. But right now, he's searching, I think. This is an obvious example. Like, the one time you give Ray the ball as a deep ball, like, he's probably going to drop that.
This is an interesting week, because I think you don't bust out your trick play guys until you really feel like you need them. And probably looking at these matchups against Bears, Denver, this Carolina, Atlanta, they probably think, we don't need to do anything real fancy in these games. And little did we know they'd lose 3 of those games.
Yeah, they really they lost to Nathaniel Hackett. I've seen him on live TV so many times the last 3 weeks, and it's every time. He's just an embarrassment. But the Niners are right there. I mean, they're right there. Their offense is just as bad. And no one's making fun of Kyle Shanahan, but they make fun of him.
We also talked a lot about about the Niner D being historic. Now watching Denver's offense, Chicago's offense. I mean, the most impressive defensive performance was against Seattle, based on what Seattle's done since. But some of those offenses that they faced thus far are just been bad.
Speaking of which, why does their defense struggle against mobile quarterbacks? I mean, they did a really good job against Geno Smith, who's having a good season, but they lost to Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and Marcus Mariota. All 3 of them made plays with their legs. How can the Niners not contain these mobile quarterbacks?
Well, Mariota, you could clearly see he expertly ran several of those read option plays to perfection. He fooled the cameraman twice was it CBS who had the coverage? He fooled the cameraman twice where they're going with the ball carrier and he had the ball. So I thought that was a big part of it. I thought he was outstanding. Also, I think when you have a defense like the 49ers that has, linebackers that run like safeties and team speed across the board, you want to try to neutralize their speed by making them, read and react. And if you have a mobile quarterback that you have to account for in the run game, that slows your pursuit down a little bit and makes an incredibly fast pursuit team like the Niners, who have Warner and, Greenlaw and Aziz and all these downhill runners. And I think it neutralizes some of their greatest strength, which is their speed.
Yeah. It seems like also the Niners are surprisingly unprepared for this, like the scrambles and the zone read. Like for the zone read, I thought the Niners, the scrape exchange that they're supposed to execute, where one guy takes the defensive end, takes the running back, and the linebacker takes the quarterback. I mean, it's just assignment football. You're not reading the play. You're just taking.
They got it right a couple times by the second half against. But
they didn't get it right very many times.
Right.
They got it wrong a lot. But what I'm saying is
3-4 times before they got it right.
And what I'm saying is, like, they faced Trey Lance all offseason. There's no excuse. And we all like D'Amico Ryan's really good coach, but now he's getting tested the way Saleh got tested in 2020. Now all your starters are gone. What do you got? And the backups he had out there were really unprepared to stop the zone read, which is a play they were seeing all offseason. Like, they should have been better against that in this game.
Yeah, you got a guy in Mariota who's deceptive and got great speed and great quickness. And Drake got fooled. Ebukam got fooled. They all bit inside on that surface. It's once you're 2 steps in, there's no way you can recover. We saw Womack get pinched inside on that touchdown run by Mariota. He took one false step and Mariota was gone. Had the angle. So. Yeah, they lost contain on the quarterback, 5-6 times in the day, and it burned them.
Is it fair to say that the wide 9 might be a little bit better against pocket quarterbacks than mobile quarterbacks? I mean, think about it. You put all that space between 4 defensive linemen, there's just more room to scramble. And if their job is to just get to the quarterback with reckless abandon, how cognizant of the zone read are they? That's more reading and reacting.
I thought the biggest play in the game that we haven't discussed yet was in that first half on the 3rd and 13 from the 39, and the Niners blitz Greenlaw and I believe Hufanga, and Mariota read it instantly, ran right up the middle for 17 yards and extended that drive, and eventually found he faked out Womack on the touchdown run. That's what broke the 14-14 tie.
That's been an issue for the Niners defense since Saleh was here. Yeah. That's been an issue for the Niners defense since Saleh was here, when Russell Wilson would beat him.
I do think in the wide 9, you're a little bit further outside, and unless you have first of all, they've been incredible on these coordinated stunts and games up front. Like really, really great. But yeah, when you got those wide 9, especially if you're going with young guys like Drake, they're going to give the quarterback some obvious run lanes. And if you have a quarterback that's sees an obvious run lane and will aggressively attack it, yeah, you can absolutely make plays, and they're back-breaking plays.
Yeah, and it's like when you're going against a guy like Mariota or Justin Fields, you have to know that if he sees that lane, that's his first option. That's the best option. Absolutely. Because he can run for those 15 yards easier than he can throw for him.
And also, there's no chance of an interception. So you're keeping the ball out of the air. It's a high percentage deal. And in the NFL, the way they officiate the thing, there's a very good chance that you're going to have some late hit that's going to tack on 15 yards on the end of it.
It's true. Those scrambles are backbreakers. And oftentimes the Niners defense gives them up right in the A-gap. And to me, that's schematic. You got to shut that down by scheme. Seth Harvey said, by alignment. Seth Harvey says, worst part about being a Niners fan is looking at a player's highlights on another team and seeing your coach not use them that way. KC wins on Sunday. I know what you mean, right? Like, wouldn't it be fun to see Brandon Ayuk on Buffalo in Green Bay? Wouldn't that be fun? I'd like that.
I thought he was referring to Jerick McKinnon.
Baby. Chris O says, is Kyle overwhelmed? Lost his entire offensive coaching setup, including Mike McDaniels, lost Trey. Does John Jed need to get him help? Fangio. Well, Fangio's not going to help the offense, but that's a very good question, right? He did lose a lot of his support system. Possibly.
Yeah, first of all, it can't be both, right? Mike McDaniel can't be this incredibly brilliant, bright, young, offensive mind who is such a key element of the rushing attack, and no loss at all when you lose him. right?
Good point.
Wasn't overrated when he was here, or he's overrated now. But either way, you had him, now you don't have him.
Trey Niner says, why do we think we need trick plays to have a good offense? Some of the best offenses in the league aren't doing trick plays. They have a competent quarterback. Yeah, the Niners offense does seem a little gimmicky once you get past their, toss plays and their stretch plays and their slants and screens and curls. Everything else is like, oh, let's call a deep shot to Charlie Werner. That's gimmicky.
They'll call them shot plays, where they feel like they've got a mismatch or they're trying to fool somebody. But I would like to see a little bit more, a little bit more continuity to their offense. A little bit more, a little bit more decisiveness from the quarterback. I thought the quarterback played pretty well in this game. This game was a lot about Arthur Smith and Marcus Mariota. I thought those guys were the two stars of the game.
It's just hard to say anyone on the offense played well when they had that drive in the fourth quarter. That one drive, it's like, guys, it's the fourth quarter and you're losing by 2 touchdowns. What the fuck are you doing? It's like, how could you do all that game to just totally be oblivious to the situation? I don't know. That was just, it just felt so amateur that it's hard to give the Niners offense a pat on the back after that fourth quarter, that drive, that second half. That's all the way I look at it. But yeah, he did make some nice throws. I want to ask you about
it's like a guy who's like a NASCAR driver who's got an incredible superstar, incredible car on the road, but he's on the freeway driving 35 miles an hour. I mean, that's what that fourth quarter felt like. It's like speed it up.
We shouldn't have to tell you. This is football 101, and you're in year 6, Kyle. You grew up around the game. All right. Danny Gray didn't suit up.
He was sick during the week, I guess.
Okay. Assuming he's not sick this week, how can the 49ers get him involved? I do not like the way that they've used him. They haven't used him this year. How would you get him involved, integrated into the offense this week against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would like to see, there has to be some penalty for bad play, right? I mean, I thought, Ray dropping that obvious play, not laying out for that play. Okay, that's fine. We're going to go with Danny Gray this week. If I coach the team, I'd go with Danny Gray this week. And if that means I don't trust Danny Gray and I got to have somebody else return, then I'll have somebody else return. But if I'm going to go with one speed receiver this week and it's got to be Ray or Danny after last week, I think I'm putting up Danny and I'm taking multiple shots down the field to him.
When they drafted Danny Gray, I was there. What John Lynch said was the reason we like Danny Gray is he's not just a deep threat. I watched his cut-ups, John Lynch said, and there was a whole reel of him catching screen passes and fearlessly slashing through the defense. I think he used the verb slashing. Give him a chance. If you want to call 800 screens a game, maybe give one to someone who runs a 4-3. Just a suggestion. There are other ways you can get him the ball than just one post route a game and say, oh, he didn't catch it. You're back in the doghouse for a month. Get the ball in his hands. See what happens.
I would work in JP Mason and Danny Gray. I'm working in JP Mason for 10, 12 carries, and I'm working in Danny Gray.
Let's talk about JP Mason, because the fact that I really think that Jordan Mason is the best running back on the team. No disrespect to Jeff Wilson Jr. He's a good running back, but he already looks gassed. They used him a lot the last month. He had nothing in the tank in Atlanta. They better be careful with him and not get him injured as well. Jordan Mason has fresh legs, a full tank of gas. He's 225, and the one carry he got, he casually gained 7 yards. He was really good in the preseason. Whenever they get around to putting him on the field, I do think this team could take off. This offense could actually get it together.
He's not on the field because they don't trust him. But, hey, guys, what's the worst that could happen? I don't know. Maybe he fumbled deep in his own territory and somebody scooped it up and ran it in for a touchdown.
Thank you. Oh,
is that
thank
the worst?
So well put. Yeah, what's he going to do?
Yeah, I mean, what can we dream up something worse than that?
Or on 3rd and 1, he's going to get stuffed for a 1-yard loss like Tevin Coleman. Like, sure, Jeff Wilson Jr. and Tevin Coleman know your scheme, but your job as the coach is to play the best players, not to play the most knowledgeable players. It's not an SAT class. It's football.
It is important. They must feel, okay, all I got to say is they must feel like he cannot protect Jimmy. It's got to be about the protection of Jimmy. If it's about anything besides the protection of Jimmy, I don't get it. I don't get it because this kid's big and fast. He runs hard. He runs probably as hard as Jeff Wilson, but he's 240 pounds. They may feel, you know what? Here's the other thing. I haven't seen every practice. Maybe they feel like, if he takes a big pop, he runs a little bit upright. Jordan Mason, he does. Maybe they feel like if he takes a big pop, he's coughing it up. He's going to put the ball on the carpet, and they can't trust it. But guess what? Jeff Wilson just did that too. So take a shot on this kid, and I agree with you. I like Jeff Wilson, but I think Jeff Wilson's been used a ton, and I think they need to it's a long year, and I think they need to spot him a little bit, and I'd like to see Mason in there. And the other thing is they're very they don't just give out these, active on game day spots for nothing. If you're active, you got to play. Well, this guy's been active and he hasn't played. So let's see him play a little bit. That would be my feeling. I want to see him play. I like the way he looked in college. I like the way he looked in the preseason. I know he could make a big negative play. I'm willing to take that chance.
I also feel like Kyle just doesn't play rookies unless he has to, or their name is Nick Bosa. I mean, he played Elijah Mitchell last year, but he had to. Remember, Mostert was hurt. Jeff Wilson was hurt. He had no options. Trey Sermon was terrible. This year, he has two veterans that he can play at running back, so he's going to do that. Last year, he played Mohamed Sanu over Jawan Jennings for half a year for no reason. I mean, there was clear who was better between those two, but he played Sanu for half a year. Kyle does this. It's too bad.
Whose call is it, by the way? Because I always get the sense with the running backs that it's like not Kyle's call. Like it's like Bobby Turner's call. Is that,
if
Bobby
Kyle
Turner
is
have
delegating,
that kind of power?
If Kyle is delegating that decision, that's a problem. He's the head coach. He decided to delegate that decision. He decided to not make that decision. It's his call. He's the head coach. Overrule someone. It's your team. I don't want to hear Kyle delegating that, saying, hey, it's not up to me. Everything's up to you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Everything's
would
up to you.
To know the dynamics there, though, because I get the sense from just being around that thing a little bit that you got Anthony Lynn, you got Bobby Turner, and you got Kyle, and Bobby Turner's got the most experience. And every time I hear people talking about this position that sound like they're talking with some level of authority, they always make references to Bobby T, like he's the gatekeeper to the carries, and maybe he is. Maybe.
But the same thing happens at wide receiver. Like Danny Gray's buried for no reason. Hasn't even gotten an opportunity. He's the JP Mason of the wide receiver room. I think it's an overriding theme with the team. Talanoa didn't play last year.
They're trusting Burford. I mean, they're trusting Burford at right guard. Why not?
They benched him as soon as Brunskill got healthy. And then Burford's back out there now because McGlinchey's hurt. But as soon as Brunskill was in football shape, they were like, Spencer, thank you for your effort. Now you're on the bench. They didn't trust Banks last year. Banks looks pretty good this year. They didn't trust Talanoa last year. He looks phenomenal this year. They're just a little scared. Kyle is conservative. He comes across as, hey, I'm 41, I'm hip, I wear Kanye West shoes, but hey, Kanye's pretty conservative too. Maybe that was the tell the whole time. I don't know. Matthew Sanders says support system for Kyle, call the ambulance. Yeah, I know, right? I think he's probably got a lot of people that called him up after every game. They're like, Kyle, you're great. Don't listen to that Grant Cohn guy. He's terrible. Antonio says Kyle Shanahan should take classes from Brian Daboll. That's what I told you last week, right player in the right position. Hey, well, you know who did take classes from Brian Daboll? Ken Dorsey. I'm just throwing that out there. Jed, if you're listening, you might want to call him, get to know his agent.
Daboll is a hell of a coach, man. Look what he's done with Daniel Jones.
He is a hell of a coach. We have one more topic. I guess we talked about it earlier. We did talk about this earlier, right? The best game plan to win on Sunday?
Well, yeah, I kind of mentioned it. It's like, I don't know what the best game plan is. On one hand, they need to be more dynamic offensively. They need to find Danny Gray down the field. They need to create that space and make more big plays and play faster, better tempo. But on the other hand, you got Mahomes on the other side with Kelsey and a really strong offense, and you might want to play keep away. And you might, if you really want to have the one thing about Arthur Smith is that he had a game plan to win the game. He said the Niners are down 6 starters on D. This plays into what we do. We're going to run the ball for 3.5 yards a pop, and then we're going to make some plays on third down. We're going to go tempo on third down and catch them by surprise, and we're going to keep them on the field, and we're just going to pound them for 4 quarters. And they did it, and it worked. And they were +3 in turnovers. Yeah. I think if the 49ers are going to win against Kansas City, they not only cannot be -3 in turnovers, I think if you're really, honest about this, I think the 49ers need to be +1 to win, even though they're at home. So that means that you might want to take the air out of the ball and run it a little bit and play keep away and see if you can dominate time of possession, like you did against the Rams last year in Week 10, because you're going up against a better, more explosive offense that you probably without six defensive starters. I don't think you can plan to stop them. I really don't.
Well, the Niners have proven that they only have one way they can win football games, and that's when they run more than they pass. When they pass more than they run, they have a losing record. When they run more than they pass with Jimmy Garoppolo, they're damn near undefeated. So that's got to be what they're – I mean, last week they had 41 throws and 18 runs. That cannot happen. If they do that against the Chiefs, they'll lose by a lot. And so even if they fall behind by 7 or 14 in the first half, you can't give up on your run game like they did against Atlanta because they will lose. So, yeah, run more than you pass and be down by fewer than 4 points entering the fourth quarter. Because if you're down by 4 more, it's over. That's another one. And then again, just when you do throw, everything can't be a screen or a slant. You got to actually let Brandon Ayuk be a special player, and Debo too, because what you're asking them to do is you're just handcuffing them at this point.
I think you got to take some downfield shots on first down, because let's be honest, when teams know the 49ers are going to pass, it's very, very difficult. Right. Very difficult. Their receivers,
because that's what happens when you're down 4 in the fourth quarter. They know you're going to pass. Same thing. Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, if they're in this mode where they got a fool of teams, well, then you better pass on first down. You better pass on first down. You better do what the Falcons did last week on first down, and that's pick up 7 or 8 yards and get to 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, and then pass again. And really keep the Chiefs off balance.
And when you take your shots, don't take them to tight end 4 or wide receiver 6 or the guy who runs the 4-5-3 and fumbles 6 times. Like, make it count. I know you want to fool them to a degree, but make it count. Throw it to someone who could catch the freaking ball.
And how about move the quarterback outside the pocket and not give away 5 plays a game to Chris Jones batting down passes?
That's true.
Chris Jones has proven he can bat down passes. So don't give him that opportunity. Get Jimmy on the move. Get him away from Chris Jones. The same way that you dominate Aaron Donald, Chris Jones dominates you.
Yeah.
So that can't happen. If Chris Jones dominates them the way he did in the Super Bowl, it's that they'll lose on that as well. So they really gotta control Jimmy. They gotta move Jimmy. They gotta control Chris Jones. They gotta play ball control. They gotta take some shots down the field to create some space. But they got to move the chains. Also, where's Ty Davis-Price? He was another third.
That's what I want to say. If the goal is play ball control, then you're saying the goal is to do what Atlanta did last week, run the ball 40 times. Sure, of course. You're not going to do that if you don't use Jordan Mason. So, get some courage and give him the ball and see what happens, because you're not going to win this game without him. That's one prediction I have. You can't win this game without Jordan Mason being involved. The Coleman Wilson combination isn't enough. It's not enough. Not this week.
I mean, also the basics, okay? The Niners have 3 losses that they lost on the basics. I mean, you lost 1 game because of way too many penalties. You lost 2 games because of your -3 in turnovers. Yep. You don't win games -3 in turnovers against good teams or bad teams on the road. You just don't win. So you got to take care of the ball, and you got to not make a bunch of penalties. If you do that, at least you got a shot. If you don't do that, you got no shot.
I mean, Jordan Mason theoretically could change everything, because if he is the player that we think he is, then all of a sudden the 49ers can be who they are. They can be their identity. They can run the ball as much as they need. They can control games. Right now, I don't know that they can do that with Jeff Wilson Jr. He just fumbled last week. He looks tired. He has injury history. I don't know that they can rely on him like that. But if Jordan Mason is that guy, all of a sudden this team is a totally different story.
Yeah, I mean, to me, either TDP or Jordan Mason. I'd like to see them both, to be honest. I'd like to see them both, and I'd like to see a 35-carry attack, and I'd like to see, Kittle be the tight end they take shots with down the field and not Warner, and I'd like to see Gray be the gut receiver they take shots with down the field, not Ray.
FP says don't need to protect Jimmy if Mason don't need to protect Jimmy if Mason gets ball and is 10 yards down the field with the ball. Gray downfield, Debo on check down, GK and Jennings on slant. Gotcha, FP. Good suggestions. Christian McCaffrey is like a back wide with Debo wide back, says John Tyler GG. Back wide. I like that. Back slot?
Yeah, he'd be on this team, the way Kyle calls plays and as versatile as McCaffrey is, if you didn't have to run him between the tackles and you could spot him, my goodness. I mean, McCaffrey could be the difference between them getting that sixth ring and not. And the other reason is you want him or you want to defend him in the Super Bowl against Buffalo if you're lucky enough to make it there, or do you want to defend him against the Rams? I mean, the Rams have beaten you despite the fact you have a better roster with these great individual talents. Don't allow them to get another great individual talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Niners had Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle on the same offense, I think they could probably score 3 points in the fourth quarter. I think they could do it.
Maybe even 7.
Maybe even 7. I think they could do it. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for watching. Larry's great doing this with you. Always a lot of fun.
Yep. Hey, catch me tonight on the Krug Show. I'm going a little post game on the Warriors tonight. Not only do we talk Giants and Niners and everything else, but we talk a little Warriors, and it's opening night against the Lakers. Planning a big live stream party in the post game. Bunch of people stopping by, so it should be good. Check it out.
That sounds great. I'll be checking it out as well. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. See you soon.